Welcome to another episode of DocVak. This is the third in our sleep apnea series. So if you haven't watched the first two series, hit pause, catch those two episodes, and come back. But just as a quick recap, um, we talked about what snoring is, which is a blockage of the air passageway that is not allowing the air to go in smoothly. The airflow gets turbulent. The turbulence causes the noise, and that is the noise of snoring that you hear. And in the second episode, what we mostly focused on was the effects of sleep apnea on sleep disruption that lead to sleepiness during the day, loss of productivity, being excessively groggy, attention deficits, memory loss, and general sense of lethargy. Today, we shift our focus to more important things that are going on in the body as a result of the lack of oxygen. So, we'll shift our attention away from the brain onto the body's hormonal systems. The first thing is that when you lack oxygen, it triggers a stress response in the body. So if your airway keeps closing repeatedly every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, each time the oxygen levels drop, well, that leads to the body's stress responses getting activated. And what is really critical here is one which is cortisol. So, cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol gets released by our body whenever we face stress, and cortisol leads to the body gaining weight. So, if you have unexplained weight gain, particularly in middle age or in women after menopause, and all of a sudden you never used to be this heavy, it was never easy for you to put weight on, and now you are doing it, well, one of the things could be that you have developed snoring, sleep apnea with your airway closing, lack of oxygen causing cortisol to get released, and that is now causing fat buildup. And this fat buildup can also cause a form of liver disease. In fact, one of the most common causes of liver disease, which is non alcoholic fatty liver disease or NAFLD. Simply put, what it means is just like you start getting fat in the belly, you now start getting fat in the liver. And that can be an important and unrecognized cause of liver problems. The second thing that happens is because of this lack of oxygen, there is a very critical thing that happens, which is you get leptin resistance. Now, leptin is a hormone that very few people talk about, and we will talk a lot about it in my series on medical weight loss and breaking some very common myths about weight loss. And so be sure to tune into that series, which I'll be posting very soon, where I'll be giving tips on how to use science to work with you in facilitating effective weight loss strategies. But here we will focus just on the fact that when you have lack of oxygen, it causes leptin resistance. Leptin resistance means the body isn't listening to what that hormone is telling it. And that hormone generally is meant to regulate appetite. It also leads to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is what causes diabetes. So, one of the things that happens as a result of heavy snoring, lack of oxygen, sleep apnea is you start being at risk for initially pre-diabetes. Your fasting blood sugars all of a sudden are very, very high. And that is because not only are you developing insulin resistance, but that cortisol secretion that I just talked about also increases your blood sugars. So a combination of that leads to prediabetes, and later on, it leads to full blown diabetes. One of the things that is related to this, specific to women, is a condition called PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a common cause of infertility, and it typically affects young women who are overweight, and they have not only insulin resistance, but they also have ovarian resistance that leads to elevated levels of male hormones like testosterone. And it ultimately ends up causing these women to develop infertility, and they also develop weight gain. And about 70% of women with PCOS have sleep apnea. And I have found it very frequent that those women don't have their sleep apnea recognized in time. So we saw how the hormonal effects of sleep apnea can lead to obesity, weight gain due to the cortisol release. It can lead to liver disease with fatty liver. It can lead to leptin resistance and insulin resistance and promote more and more unexplained and sudden spikes in weight gain, particularly in middle age. It can lead to pre-diabetes and subsequently full-blown diabetes, or if you are already diabetic, it can certainly worsen it. And then it can, in women, lead to PCOS. And so this is, in a nutshell, just some of the key hormonal changes that occur due to sleep apnea. In the next episode, we will talk a lot more detail about the most lethal aspect of sleep apnea, which is the cardiac disease, and particularly the risk of heart attacks and strokes. And don't miss that episode, because the facts that I will present to you in that episode will be quite shocking. Until then, this is DocWalk, and we try to decode medicine and make it accessible and understandable.